dividing it up.
All right, good morning, everyone. Before we get started, I'm going to lean on Juby and Tepe and Roth just a little bit here. We do not have quorum this morning in-house. We have 3 that are requesting remote attendance. Deb Allen is not here. We have the option to just forego the meeting.
I'm here. I'm in the building. This
Who's
is
here?
Silva.
You are, but I don't see you.
Yes, I'm in the building. I don't have my ID. I apologize. Where can I let you in at?
So wait, if we have Silva, we have Surgis, what do we need? 4? Surgis, Kenyon, Lewis, Silva would give us 4. Silva, we're going to just lollygag in it and try and get in here. We're not going to start the meeting till you're here.
Sounds
Blair,
good.
Blair, take us offline.
We're off the hook.
All right, Mr. Chair, as vice chair, I am available to fill out your quorum.
Where are we without a lawyer?
Yeah.
She's
Here. Yeah, she's here.
Not have enough, if you do not have enough members, either the chair or vice chair are considered as members of your committee. You know,
Would you substantiate that for us? Because I see this replicating itself.
you can say it again if you didn't.
Here we are, look at this.
Here we go.
Not over a quorum.
Blair, bring us back online.
I love it when they make their grand entrance.
Good morning, everyone. It being 9:03 on Wednesday morning, September 13th, we'd like to bring the Human Services Committee to order. If we could call roll.
Allen,
Ellen present.
Kenyon,
Here.
Lewis,
Lewis here.
Silva,
Silva is here.
Tarver,
Carver's online.
Linder, Surges,
Here.
Tepe. An in-person quorum.
Okay, and I believe we need to formally allow Mr. Tarver is remote. Is everybody okay with that?
Of course.
Absolutely. Okay, Mr. Tarver, thank you for making time. I don't see anybody, let's see, approval of minutes. Mr. Kenyon,
I would ask for unanimous consent.
any opposition to that?
Not gonna answer it, Sylvia.
Let's move the minutes.
Let it be so.
I don't see anybody online for public comment. I don't see anybody in the audience for public comment. Monthly financial reports are attached. Item 7, Department of Human Resource Management, Jamie.
Good morning. The first report we have up is the Blue Cross Blue Shield invoice. Everything there is within tolerance, fairly normal bill for this month. Actually, if you look at when we get to the Assured Partners reports, you'll see that we really kind of leveled out. Right after we became self-insured, COVID hit and everything was kind of all over the place when it came to health insurance, but we've really gotten a lot more consistent in the last few months since the end of the pandemic. Next report is.
So
the-
Jamie, on that, at 1.5, I would consider that a slight uptick. Maybe 150,000 more than what we've been seeing. So what month is this for?
This is for last month. Well, it's a month behind. so
This is
would be the
July?
July invoice.
I would like to track, and this is just personal, but I know that for my businesses, August is a dip month. That I don't know if it's because kids are going back to school or families are on vacation, but people aren't having procedures done and stuff. And I'm just curious to see how that translates to us in terms of bills coming in for August. I guess we'll see that in October.
We'll cover, and we can look in the Assured Partners reports when they come out, when we get to that part, which, shows the total bill over the course of the year, and we can look back at some past years. I think the 1.5 million is probably, like you said, up from the average bill last year, but I think that is probably about the amount that we estimated health costs to go up for the year.
Okay,
We do have more subscribers this year than last. Our employee pool has grown a little bit, which has added more people to the health plan. So that's increased the total bill as well.
but analytics wise, I'm just looking month over month.
Mhm.
And I would, of course, be curious to see this year, this month compared to last year, this month. And just kind of see if there's a trend. Why is August such an anomaly?
Part of the reason that as the year goes on, we do see some decrease in the bill is because also we have a stop loss. And so people are reaching that stop loss. So some of our higher cost individuals are reaching that stop loss. Once they reach that stop loss, then we stop incurring cost above that
Blue
point.
cost kicks in to make the
Mhm.
payments. Got it.
Yes.
And I know the flip side of that same coin is for many individuals, it's wonderful because they've met their copay at this point of the year. And it's all being paid in full. And that's kind of why I look at this as well and say, is that just the month of the year that, like tax day, is this the time of the year that this hits? So anyhow, sorry.
I think it's probably a combination of factors, like you mentioned, school starting, maybe not the best time for people to be doing things like routine visits and things like that. So I think it's probably a combination of factors.
Sorry to digress.
The next report is the Blue Cross MERP totals. Numbers are holding pretty steady for MERP. Our total subscribers in Blue Cross is,
Did we bump up there a little bit?
we did bump up a little bit in total subscribers for Blue Cross. So I have that total. It's 2,141 total subscribers if you include employees, spouses, and dependents on the Blue Cross plan.
But in terms of the MERP, we bumped up.
MERP's been holding pretty steady at 70 for the last several months, give or take one or two. So it's bounced.
Thought we had dipped
between
down to
like-
like 62 or something, but whatever.
It's been around 70 for several months now. So
Still a great program.
next up are the Assured Partners report. And Blair, if you want to go all the way forward to the 2023 slide. So here you can see, the green number is our total funding. The red number is total costs all included. So we've been really consistent. So we've been right on the money and
Guys, at
very
370,000 going into reserves, it doesn't get any. I mean, that is uncomfortably amazing.
also take into consideration that that providers do have a full year to submit an invoice. So more invoices will roll in that will get put into those months.
Hey, Debbie Downer, just give us a win.
No, I'm saying even more closer to even we're going to get as those roll in, it's going to get closer to a break even. So it was just a spot on estimate this year.
And again, for those wondering what the humor is all about, we were asked to reduce our reserves because we had too much in. We kind of took the best educated guess with the assistance of Assured Partners. I don't think it can get any better than this. So, I mean,
I think
we're
we
doing
will
our job.
probably finish the year once everything is rolled in and all invoices for the year received. I think we will finish the year with that small dip in the reserve being, I believe we were aiming for about a $300,000 dip in the reserve. And I think that's where we will finish.
Perfect. Which is still a $600,000 swing from where we're at, correct?
Right.
I mean,
There
am I
are
reading that right?
always, right. There's always incurred but not yet received invoices that we are responsible for that have not been sent in yet.
Got it.
Next up is the monthly applicant and staff changes. Nothing out of the ordinary to report here. We're still seeing good numbers in terms of applications. Lots of movement, lots of hiring. So everything's going well.
Anything from a doom and gloom perspective on this?
No, not at all. I actually think it's starting to, again, the pandemic made everything different. It's starting to kind of return to normal, which is nice.
I am seeing in the public and in the private sector, a rash of individuals who let's just say maybe had exhausted their unemployment benefits and now must return to work and jobs are being filled. And the general census I'm getting from the chambers of commerce and stuff like that is that the employees coming back are not motivated to the point that maybe pre-pandemic motivational forces were there. It's like, darn, I have to go back to work. And I'm just struggling understanding that psyche and where it's at. So I'm just curious to see if, you know, we don't have that issue here. These are people moving between other counties or private sector to public sector, or
I don't think we're immune to what you're talking about. We have had some instances in recent months where we've hired someone and quickly determined within the first 30 days that they're not a good fit for the position. And we address those issues when they happen. We do still hold our employees to a high standard of service and productivity. It happens.
if anybody else wants to jump in this meeting, feel free, but Jamie, keep going.
You're the entire entertainment.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
We have workers' comp and liability reports attached. Nothing without a tolerance. You know, as Mr. Sturgis often says, I know the day before we have this committee, you hear about a lot of settlements. I just want to remind everyone that when we have a claim incurred, we work with our provider to establish a reserve, which is essentially an estimate of what we expect the total cost of that claim to be, including final settlement. And many of the claims that you are seeing being settled had reserves set at or above the settlement that we end up approving. So they are already included in these reports before that settlement is ever issued. So if you're wondering, why didn't I see a big jump in the amount that we are paying out? We just approved a large settlement or something of that nature. It's because we actually included that when it was incurred. So it's been on this report, these reports that we put out every month since the incident happened. Sometimes we may have to raise it a little if we end up settling more than the reserve, but actually we're pretty conservative in our reserve settlement estimates, just to make sure we're not caught off guard.
And again, just for if you give this chart a quick glance, this chart is not suggesting from left to right an annual, decline in our payouts. This is a chart by departments. Am I correct in that?
That is a chart by department, yes, where our claims are highest by department in terms of workers' comp. And as you can see, the sheriff's department, by nature of what they do, they just get hurt more often. Same thing with the juvenile justice center. Youth counselors are dealing with detainees. And it's just the nature of what they do lends itself to more accidents and injuries.
Thanks so much.
If you want to go to the next.
Oh, we have two questions. Mr. Roth first. Debbie beat you by like a split
If
second.
we settle for less, does the money then get reallocated back to some other fund?
It's not actually taken from a fund. This report.
It's just a
It's just, it's
liability.
shown on the reports that we show every month, so that the potential liability of the claim
Okay.
is shown in the correct year. For example, some of those claims are settled years later,
Right.
but it would still show in the year it was incurred.
So it's considered a liability on.
If
the
you look at our
county-
financials, it's a liability.
Okay.
Correct, correct. But we don't actually take any money out of the fund
Okay.
until we pay it out.
Good enough. Thank you.
Deb?
And sometimes that can be a single claim. I mean, the sheriff usually has a couple, but some of the others are just a single.
You know what? Unfortunately, the nature, in my realm, the nature of this beast is frequency and severity. So we can be destroyed by, death by 1,000 paper cuts, or it can be one whopper claim. Maybe a death or something like that, a major disability. Either way, the impact is the same. And what you're trying to do is minimize both, to the best of our ability. So, and I think we've done a great job. I think you've heard me say this before. The cooperation that we've reached over the past several years with the departments and the elected officials' offices, mind blowing. It's just been fabulous. And Jamie continues those relationships, and as does CCMSI.
And as, you know, just something I was going to kind of preface when we get to budget, it's not something that I would want to consider for this year, but I think there's a lot of opportunity for this county to take on a risk manager. We've noticed an uptick in preventable accidents. So we did actually start tracking preventable versus not preventable accidents when I came on. So we now have a couple years of data to look at in terms of preventable nurse versus non-preventable. For example, we recently had a workers' comp issue come through in a department because there were boxes stacked in a hallway that a person tripped over and actually became so injured they had to have an ambulance take them away. That's going to be a potentially large claim when it comes through and was completely preventable. You know, boxes shouldn't have been in the hall, creating a trip hazard and things like that. So there is a big opportunity for education of our departments and managers, inspections that occur within the county to help prevent accidents that occur. And, you know, if we added a position like that, it would be not a general fund position, it would be an insurance liability position. And I do believe it would save way more than it costs.
And you know what, it's for the business owners, Vern, Monica, Mike, and anybody else I'm missing, Miss Juby, if you are a business owner. The yesterday during chambers, I received a call from one of my staff that there was an incident at one of the offices. And the individual was asking, you know, how do you want us to handle that? And it's always difficult to sit in the role that we are, because it's one coin with two sides. And the first side of that coin is, of course, how do we take care of the employee? Period. That's simple. Are they hurt? Do you need an ambulance? You know, what can we do to make sure that we minimize the inconvenience, the pain, you know, for that employee? Yet on the other side of that coin is, are we really responsible for this? Who left the boxes in the hallway? Was that a preventable situation? And as a business owner and as a board member, sometimes it's really tough to reconcile those two sides of the same coin. Wow, I have to be the person. Well, you have to be the board that decides. I got to be fair to the staff person, but I also have to be fair to the taxpayer. And what's the right way to handle this? And Jamie, we've always said in this committee, sometimes you have to spend a buck to make a buck. And it always seems like, well, how can you increase your budget with another person? But if you increase that budget, that ultimately brings down a $60,000 claim, was that individual not worth it? But how do you prove up on that analytics wise? How do you show that correlation between the two? I don't know. It was boxes in a hallway, for crying out loud. And now that staff person, and I have no idea. Did they hit their head? Did they twist their knee? Did they, you know?
I think ultimately you show that progress by the fact that we have been tracking preventable versus non-preventable. Again, you know, we can't include accidents where, you know, a police officer is hurt in pursuit of a, you know, someone that committed a crime. That's not a preventable accident. So I mean, looking strictly at preventable accidents like trip and falls or failure to follow protocols and things like that, where there were something occurred that could have been prevented had proper protocols been in place and then followed. So I think if you look at preventable versus non-preventable, and this isn't just for workers' comp, this includes our liability program. So making sure that we have good things in place to prevent accidents. I think you show the value of the position by a decrease in preventable accidents.
Mr. Kenyon?
Uneven sidewalks. You're walking and one sidewalk's up high and you trip, break your leg. That's so much preventable.
It's very preventable and inspections help.
There is people in buildings that do those sort of things. If they're looking down, you gotta look down. That's a simple thing.
Hard to look down when you're on your phone. I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah.
And Jamie, my question for you is in that, and Anita will be right there. My question for you is, in the employee base that we're discussing, again, there's two buckets, elected offices and departments. So when we say we would put somebody on, are the elected offices embracing any notion of tracking preventable versus non-preventable?
I have had no resistance from anyone in terms of this. Again, I don't know that they, I mean, it's the county's insurance program, it's the county's insurance. They can't get an insurance payment without sending us the incident report. So we have every ability to track all of those incidents ourselves. And we do that. But in terms of, like you said, we have great relationships in managing the insurance of our elected offices, and they have all been completely cooperative in getting us incident reports, full information, working with us with the employees on their continued workers' comp claims and
It was just a
risk
few
management
years
issues.
back where there was somebody at the circuit clerk's office that there was a file drawer that was open. And I don't know if you could remember that. And it was like a broken leg, twisted knee, stitches. And she fell and hit her head on a different file drawer. And it's just like, we can do better than this. I mean, really. So Jamie, I personally, if you are tracking that internally, we look forward to embracing that report when available and having enough data to make some choices. Anita. Sorry.
No, I was only waving my hands because a lot of times you don't look this way, so I wanted to make
This is
sure.
a tough crowd.
I know, I just want to make sure. So, I guess I'm a little surprised because having grown up in hardcore manufacturing and done a lot of that kind of work in other companies, you always had a risk management or a safety management team because, and more of our accidents ended up being things like somebody tripped over a box or there was an open file cabinet or, somebody fell on their cord from their computer and those kind of things. As much as, no, I mean, it really happens. So, and we had a person and then they would like assign, there was like safety teams and they would go around, when they were like, and raise awareness for safety and, even make sure like we did cleanup events and things. So, I mean, it really, really, really pays off. So when we get around to, to putting in some kind of position, I think it's long overdue. I'm just shocked that we don't even have it.
I would like to see that in the 2025 budget. We would need to work on developing that program to make
Yeah.
sure we have something for them to do, establishing job description. There's still a lot to do to have it, but I would like to have that for your consideration for 2025.
Appreciate that. Mr. Kenyon?
I think maybe 20 years ago, our insurance company came around and audited the property. And said, you should have a handrail here. We put a handrail there. You should have a guard by the fuel pump so nobody can run into it. And they came around and told us what to do. But I think maybe they're too lazy now.
Ooh.
Well, but those things are still in place.
We could request those loss control measures, right?
We can request it, but I think we would be well served to go beyond that. When
Good start.
Right, it's a start. And they do that when we, for example, add a new building or when we have something come up, we can request it and schedule it. So we've done that. For example, they walked the multi-use facility when it was built and things like that. So the insurance company does do that when we need it. But I think given the amount of insurance, workers' comp and liability insurance claims that this county pays out, there is a lot of room for a program to help prevent accidents and injuries.
Kenyon, whatever coffee you had this morning, it was the good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right here. Let's wait here to wake up.
Jamie, let's move on to compliance training reports.
The training board is included. We're still working on making sure we get compliance on sexual harassment training. So if you have not taken your training, please do. I'm going to send every board member who has not completed their training an email with all the necessary links.
All right,
As-
raise your hand if you haven't completed it. Oh, there's 2, there's 3, there's 4. There's 4.
I thought I did.
Okay, there's 4.
It's less than half of the board has not done it, which is an improvement over last year at this time. So I think we're getting better every year.
Saw 4 commitments in this room to have it done by next month.
Okay, well,
Okay,
we'll check next
super.
month. So
Well, we have all these surveys, Dan,
I'll bring in numbers by department next month for the committee's review.
building.
We have surveys.
I think you should put names like on the door and call them out, put up a slide with the deadbeat board members.
Let's do that.
First, we let the
With
department
pictures.
head know, and then we call it out by department. So you can hold the department head accountable if they
I
haven't
think
gotten their
elected
people.
officials should be held to a higher standard.
Okay, old business, item 9. Do we have anything for old business? Was there something that we were discussing last month that we were pulling forward? We're down here, sir.
I don't believe we have any old business that we are discussing. We just have some resolutions and then the budget.
Yeah, we got budget.
But I would like, yeah, we do have budget, but this one's easy. But I would like an update on the equity report. Is that completed? Is that not completed? What is your status? Is that stalled? Where do we sit?
We're still working hard on it. We got all the county departments to submit the information that they had. We were still getting some information from elected officials that just haven't had time to get their information in. So we're gonna try to do a workaround with that, use some seniority numbers to get that final component in for the elected offices so that we can get a final report to you next month.
Jamie, there's no polite way to say this, but the budget, the number crunching is looming. And we have heard as a board collectively that November is, that's the battleground. The urgency to get this report completed so that that data can be used in this, I can't stress that enough. And I know you know that, but I am obliged to refresh that. I think it will look poorly on us if we get there and that data wasn't available within enough time. But it got serious yesterday with votes on PTEL and how we want to address that. So from yesterday going forward, this is going to get, this is going to constrict tighter and tighter, and this report is going to bear, on some of those decisions. So
Part of the challenges have been that things are constantly changing. And positions are constantly changing. Keeping up with the changes has been challenging. In addition, we just didn't get the information back from
I
the
know that.
department heads. So, I think.
you and
we're-
I know that, and I'm trying to find a way to politely verbalize it
Yes,
so that expectations are there. But regardless, there comes a point in time where we need to draw a line in the sand and say, based on the information we have at this snapshot in time, this is the, here it is, here's the data. And I think we're there. So
yes. And we'll be bringing you some possibilities for the grading system that we'll be doing for the board to choose from. We'll have some options and how you want to do that grading system, and all the data will be there. My early numbers show that the costs, total costs are right on par with the estimates. So the estimate was 2.7 million over 3 years. My early number running showed about 2.6 million. So, we're still
right there. I'm
finalizing
very
it, but
happy.
it looks like we're right about where we expect it to be in terms of cost.
and this is an unfair question to ask you, but I'll put you on the spot. When we initiated this last year, we had come up saying, of this plan, we need to release $700,000 to make the low hanging fruit adjusted.
It was 900, but
I know,
yes.
well, it started at 7, and I was going to continue to say that we negotiated that up to just right at 9.
Yes.
Of that 9, how much have we in fact? Do you have any idea if we have utilized all of that money? Or my understanding was we couldn't utilize it until they burned through what they originally had. But it seems like going into Q3, Q4, they would be accessing those funds. Am I mistaken on that, or?
Potentially, we really have, there are very few of the increases that we did do an early resolution back in May with, like you said, the low hanging fruit, which accounted for about, I think it was about $230,000 worth of increases. Many of the departments chose instead to wait for the completion of that. Part of the challenge in doing that early, which isn't a normal step, it was at the request of a couple of departments and offices. However, to do that, for example, if you have a new employee and an experienced employee, and you raise that new employee to about what that long tenured employee makes, you may create some animosity or aggravation between the two. So in the effort of making sure we can do everybody at once in a manner that's more equitable, some of the departments elected to wait. So we have not expended all of that money.
Okay, and I just want to make sure, I just want to put that out into the ether. Because it is really a disheartening feeling to know that you've worked at a job for years and years, you know, rising through the ranks, you know, putting in your time. And then you see some new kid, you know, fresh out of college coming in, making more than you are. And I mean, that's pretty disheartening. But that falls largely on Jamie and her team's shoulders. And that's not a easy conversation to have. It's not fun in any way, shape, or form. I thank you for bearing that burden for us. But if we approved 900 and we've only used 300, I'll be curious to see over the next bit of time, whatever months we have left in this cycle, if that's actually utilized or not.
They will be able to backdate those raises so that the employees do not lose anything by waiting that time. So if the department has. to
That's
choose-
interesting.
Well, we have told them that all along and kind of said all along that these can be backdated. Therefore, that pay would be used even though it was given later in the year
Perfect,
to 12/1. So
perfect. Any questions on that? That concludes old business. Let's go to item new business 10A, resolution approving the 2024 holiday schedule. I'm assuming this is just housekeeping.
it is. We annually match the chief judge, the schedule that chief judge puts in for the court system, which is attached.
I'd like to move that.
There we go, Mr. Kenyon with the good coffee this morning and Miss Lewis second. Any conversation on this? Please call the roll.
Allen,
Alan, I.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Silva,
Yes.
Tarver,
Yes.
Surges.
Yes. Item B, resolution amending family bereavement leave and child extended bereavement leave policy with the Kane County Personnel Handbook. Jamie, if you can explain where this came from and are we just matching something? at the
Yes,
state
this
level?
this is in response to statutory changes. So they've increased some of the bereavement leave, family bereavement leave and child extended leave that we are required to provide by statute. And this policy just gets us up to speed with statute. It has been reviewed by the state's attorney's office as compliant with that statute, and it does not provide any leave beyond what is required by
I
statute.
would like to move this resolution.
I'll second.
Deb seconds. Any conversation there?
This is, what's the basic numbers like for how many days off?
This is unpaid leave that is extended through this to allow, it varies. So it's 10 work days for the death of a family member. And it defines family member in here as a close family member. So it's parent.
What about paid leave?
I'm sorry, paid leave. Our paid leave policy is not changing in accordance with this. 3 days.
Not bad. Counseling would be more important if we had that.
We do have the EAP available for anyone that's interested in it. We do have the information for the EAP both on our county internal page and posted on every bulletin board where we post employment notices.
Call the vote.
Allen,
Alan, I.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Silva,
Silva, yes.
Tarver,
Tarver, yes.
Surges.
Yes.
Passes.
Before we go to item C, I just, Mike, in relation to what you mentioned here, yesterday was an interesting vote on Ethan's Law, and I had made comment about having a readily available, a single number to be able to call if somebody was to, say, open their gun case with suicidal thoughts or tendencies, that maybe there's a sticker inside that case to just say, hey, wait a minute. And there were several people that reached out to me yesterday with those phone numbers. And Leslie, I really appreciate the, was it 688? 988? Okay, and I just can't, like, how do we not know this stuff? You know what I mean? How do we not know this? And my point is, whether it's bereavement, whether it's, let's kind of put that in the same general notion. Thank you for that. I appreciate it greatly. 10C, resolution adopting the compensation and position management policy within the Kane County Personnel Handbook.
So moved.
Second.
Who seconded? I'm sorry.
Anita got there first, actually.
Oh, Anita actually has a comment. That's fine.
We are open for discussion. Let's let Ms. Labrillo explain it
Yes.
first, and then we'll go from there.
She knows my comment already, but
This was provided as a draft in the packet last month, just for your consideration. The only changes since then is we have reviewed it with the state's attorney. So this has now been vetted by the state's attorney for content. In order to have a suitable grade and range system, you do need a policy with which to maintain it. If we do complete this project this year without a policy to maintain it, it will no longer be valid within a matter of months. So this is designed to help maintain that, to put some controls around salaries to ensure we are being compliant with the Equal Pay Act of 2003. Which I just want to kind of read you an excerpt from that. No employer may discriminate between employees on the basis of sex by paying wages to employees at a rate less than the rate at which employer pays wages to another employee of the opposite sex for the same or similar work on jobs, the performance of which requires substantially similar skill, effort, and responsibility, and which are performed under the same working conditions, unless that payment is made under a seniority system, a merit system, a system that measures earnings by production, or a differential based on any factor other than unlawful discrimination. So you do need a system in place that determines why and how and in what manner and how much you are paying different to different employees. It is the only way can be sure we're compliant with this act. Just an interesting tidbit of something historical. The 2007 strategic plan of this board included adding a grade and range system for the county.
we're right on
Jamie,
target.
my specific question for you is, I'll date myself saying, put on your Johnny Carson Karnak, the Magnificent, and look into your crystal ball here. And time and again, we try and do something that's good and positive out of this committee. We birth it here, it goes upstream, it becomes law, legislation. What do you envision the unintended consequences being of this? If there are any negative in your mind, or is this pure and this is a positive thing to be doing? Which I believe it is in my heart of hearts.
I think it would be naive to say that there aren't going to be some kind of unintended consequences. We're going to have to work through this. This is a starting point. I think this is new and a big departure from current practice that is going to require a lot of edits over the first couple of years to get it right. We are not trying to limit our department heads' ability to function and retain good quality people. I think the transparency that this brings also brings some personal difficulties for some people. I think a lot of people don't want to see a grade assigned to their position because then they see grades assigned to other people's positions. They may not know what that person does and say, wait a minute, why are they a higher grade than me? Are they more important than me? And it's really, the grades just don't mean that. It's simply a determination of relative value. So I think that that's an unintended consequence, that you might have some people that experience some kind of hurt feelings that they shouldn't. It's certainly not intended to do that. I think of the positive consequences, you have a path to promotion, right? You can't know what everybody does in every different department and every different job. Just because you carry the title administrative assistant does not mean you do the same thing as an administrative assistant in another department. So by going through this process and actually analyzing the job descriptions associated and assigning a grade that's based on their duties, I think you can see the difference between administrative assistants that may do some higher functions for that department, but carry that title, will have a higher grade. So initially someone may say, I'm an administrative assistant. Why am I a grade X when this other administration is a grade Y. I don't like that. That's upsetting. So I think you might have some feelings. I think we're going to have to explain this often to make sure that people understand what the purpose of it is. So sometimes some extra transparency might first cause some hurt feelings and things like that where it shouldn't, but it might, and we will have to work through that.
Folks, remember this day, okay? And remember these statements. You have to swing the bat, okay? We might not get it right the first time. There's going to be lots of conversations on this. We might be looking at this a year from now saying, oh boy, we need major tweaking here. Or we might say, this is the greatest thing we've ever done. But this is absolutely an appropriate step in the right direction. We're doing the best we have with the knowledge we have at this time. And I will continue to push this uphill as hard as I can, with the caveat that we're not perfect. We're going to do the best we can, and the best we can do is to have open conversation and be as transparent as we can with everybody. And I'm going to ask for your support on this. Any other conversation? Mr. Kenyon?
The educational people do that by what training you've got, extra courses you take, and the military does it. In the police, if you take so many courses, that'll elevate you to your peers.
Yes.
It might mean you'll care, but I don't know.
And I think that we have a lot of departments that are utilizing things like that, but there's no consistency across the county. And I really think that we need to do service to, some larger departments have the ability to do that because they have more in and out and more turnover and the ability to pivot easier because of the size of their department. The ability to give people rewards for above and beyond performance, increased classes or increased professional development is something that needs to be made available to all the departments, including the small ones.
Amy, thanks for all you do. Could we call the vote, please?
Oh, wait,
Oh, I'm so sorry. Hi, Anita. I didn't look to that side of the room.
end up even the very beginning.
Feel left out.
was
Anita.
I apologize.
Okay, from now on, I'm sitting.
You come sit right up
there,
here.
Right there. So, yes. So I just wanted to briefly touch on letter M in this very long policy, and that's the performance appraisals. And we do not have to have a deep discussion on it today, but I think that there's some things lacking in our performance appraisal system. And I would just kind of like to maybe do a deep dive in that later to make sure that everybody's being consistent in their appraisals and everybody's using the same form, the same criteria for grading, and that we're making sure that everybody's doing those.
Thanks, Blair.
'Cause-
I
Yeah.
believe that currently we don't have any kind of consistent performance appraisal. So I think step one is requiring it like this policy does. We do in human resources have a form that we share as needed, but we are not currently mandating the use of that form versus another form.
Yeah, and I sort of knew that, but I wanted to bring that up because I think those performance appraisals are critical for our employees because then they know where they stand. It's sometimes that one time in a year, unfortunately, that the managers or supervisors have a chance to actually talk to their employees. And then they also get that feel during that appraisal process of what the employee wants. Do they love their job? Do they want to go further? All those things. So I think that we really need to do a better job on this. But like I said, it doesn't have to be today, but if you could put that down for further.
Absolutely. And for what it's worth, I think that the board should also undergo some kind of a performance appraisal process with your department heads. I think it would be a really good opportunity to sit down with your department heads, talk about the direction that you as a group want to go with them, as well as give them feedback. I think feedback is important for every employee and it helps you grow and also gives you an opportunity to, pat people on the back for a job well done as well. I think it's hugely important for any employee to have that conversation.
So appreciate it. I think we are so blessed to have such a diverse group and we are stronger for the sum of our parts than we are individually. And Anita, I appreciate that. Can we call the vote?
Allen,
Alan, I.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Silva,
Silva, yes.
Tarver,
Tarver, yes.
Surges.
Surges, yes. Okay, number 11, budget presentations, Human Resources Department. Folks, every department's going to be doing these. It is so difficult to view this through the same lens when Jamie has a department of, 4, 5, 6 people, compared to, like KDOT. I mean, yeah, guys, this is a tough gig to do. You need to, raise, you're up 15%. Yeah, we bought a stapler. Are you kidding me? That's how tight these budgets are. But Jamie, please,
Absolutely. So in the spirit of everything that is going on, we are not requesting much in the way of changes to our budget. So this should be a pretty quick conversation.
and if I could just refresh, had a reduction year over year last year.
2 years in a row. Yes.
2 years in a row, we have reduced our ask. How are we going to do this year?
So staffing is flat, so we are fully staffed, and I'm happy to say, I feel like we will continue to be fully staffed. We have a wonderful staff. Everybody works fantastic together. I don't expect any staffing changes. As I talked, I do think we would benefit from a risk manager. If we did bring on a risk manager in 2025, that would be a 100% special revenue fund in insurance liability and would not impact the general fund.
Would that individual be an employee of ours, or could it be somebody through one of our professionals? Do you care? Does it matter?
I think the county would benefit from having it be a county employee, and
Would it
having
be a
their
full-time?
focus.
Are you envisioning
Yes.
like a full-time person?
Oh,
or-
there's lots to
Okay.
do for a full-time person. Yes,
But-
I would envision a full-time person to do
Okay.
that. I think it would be hard to achieve a quality person in a part-time role. It's a professional.
I don't know if there were
role.
services out there or something. I have no idea.
You probably could hire a consultant to do that kind of work, but I think in that terms of that, they would come, they'd issue you a report that with a big bill on it, and they would not be our problem solver to help us find solutions
Okay,
to our problems.
Fair enough. Thank you. Any-
From a buy-in from employees, because they're the ones that actually have to keep the environment safe. You want an internal employee, not an outside consultant who comes in and tells you and leaves. You want somebody who's going to walk the talk and be there every
You
day.
think that person, again, from your background, is it important for that person to maybe be homegrown, organic, an employee that's already here, that's stepping into that role? Or do you want it coming from outside that's well-versed coming in? Which is there
I think it's got to be some person that's got that kind of a background.
okay,
And if it's somebody like, I don't know, you might have somebody in HR that's even got that kind of background, or somebody in IT, or, we may have somebody with that kind of background. But but it's definitely got to be somebody that other people can respect and buy in, and a leader, because they're going to be the person that's going to go around and talk to everybody about being safe, because that's how you do it. They're the champion for safety. They
it's not
assess.
Roger, I'm okay with it, but only because he just walked in the room. That's the only point of that comment. Sorry, Jamie, go ahead. Sorry.
I did include a couple of slides in here, rather than attributing all the things that we do as a department to individual people. We really work together as a team. I think if you call any person on the human resources team with any problem, they will help you. We don't transfer generally to other staff within our office. If you call and ask for something, person you talk to on the phone will probably get that for you. So I just included a couple slides that show all of the things that we do. We do benefits administration as well as workforce management. So if you feel like reading through, these are all of the highlights of the things that we do every day in the department. In terms of the budget, salaries and personnel, we're just, status quo in our department. Staff is our primary expense. We do not have a large number of expenses. I included on here that, the potential for a fiscal year 2025 risk manager and some of the things that would do. I will work on establishing an actual job description and program that would look like to present to you next year prior to the budget for 25. One thing we did add in yesterday, you passed the recruitment policy. In an effort to help make sure we are doing the best recruiting, we would like to take on some employment advertising that I think would help us bring in the best candidates. The government jobs website is a national website that lists jobs for various governments. It's highly used by some of our collar counties like Lake and DuPage County to advertise positions. It's also where people in county jobs looking for a step up or a change will typically go to look for jobs. The one thing I hear from our departments more and more when they're hiring is they really need somebody with government experience. It's so different in government from the private sector in terms of how you do things and what you can do. That having someone with government experience is huge, a huge
So the
asset.
flyer in the elevator isn't good enough? I mean, come on.
We use our own website and we use Indeed.
The windshields in the cars. yeah.
And Indeed will bring in a lot of applicants, but again, as I'm getting feedback from our departments, the problem with Indeed is you may get a good candidate in there, but it's buried among 35 people who just clicked apply now. And it leads to a lot of reviewing unqualified applicants to find that diamond in the rough. So I think this is, I would like to put all of our positions up on government jobs right away. Right now, if we want to do it, we do have a small advertising budget and we did put, for example, the finance director position and some other positions that we were looking for, like the ARPA director. We did put those on government jobs, but it is a hefty per posting fee. So I added to the budget, it's $4,000 a year, and then we can post unlimited jobs. So we would post all of our jobs on government jobs. The other thing, we did have some money on a line for computer repair. However, the IT department handles computer repair when we have issues. So I moved that money into the employment advertising fund. That was $1,500. So it mitigated some of that $4,000. The other thing we have in there is our ID badge machine is older, and we have found out that supplies are becoming increasingly difficult and increasingly expensive to acquire. So we got some quotes on a new badge machine. They're about I think I put $2,200 in the budget for it. They're not incredibly expensive, and our supply cost will then be able to remain stable, will not be increasing. So that was included in the budget as well.
Is that just for your department or is that for the whole?
We make badges for the whole county. Some of the elected officials, like the sheriff, do their own, but offices and departments, we do their badges.
Again, just one of those budget items that's tough to say. It's domiciled out of this budget, but it's not back charged through the other budgets and.
It's not. And to be honest with you, it's not a huge expense. If the brand new machine's only a couple $1,000, we do spend, I don't know, maybe $1,500 or $2,000 of our supply budget on badge supplies.
Next slide.
Remember, we were going for a record.
We were, but we stalled. Blair, next slide. Yeah.
Oops, that's it for the presentation. If you want to pull up, Blair, there's the slide that
You have like a spreadsheet or
was
budget? or-
sent.
Are you
yesterday.
flat year over year, increase, decrease?
It's just the small increase for the couple $1,000s on the badge machine and some employment advertising. That's
Okay.
the only difference.
Okay.
And those budget reports were posted on the website. And then Kathy Hopkinson did email you something yesterday with staff that shows we don't have any vacant positions. So there's nothing super exciting on that slide. It just shows we have 5 positions and that none are vacant.
And again, I think as chair of this committee, it would be great to be able to say, hey, we are showing a return of some monies to the budget, but we've done that 2 years in a row. And if we're just up a scooch, I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the alternatives that we've brought to the county in terms of saving literally millions of dollars that they had the opportunity to vote on, and we're doing our job. I think we're doing our job. So.
This is the slide provided by finance. My understanding is you'll see this slide for every single department that provides a budget presentation showing their positions and what portion of their salary budget is vacant positions.
And I know that a lot of this slide is going to come up often. I know that was birthed from this committee, that we have pushed hard to say these vacant positions can't continue in to manifest the way they were. So thank you for that. I know that you've taken some personal criticism and heat on that, and thank you for holding the line. So. Okay, could we, if you are wrapped with that,
We are.
Mr. Kenyon, could we have a motion to report, place reports on file?
Silva seconds.
Silva seconds. Any conversation on that? Go ahead.
Allen,
Alan, I.
Kenyon,
Aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Silva,
Silva, yes.
Tarver,
Tarver, yes.
Sturgis.
Sturgis, yes.
On file.
I have no need for executive session that I'm aware of.
I have a motion to adjourn.
You know what, sir?
We
Kind
all-
sir,
We did make it.
we are, in fact,
It's a step in the right direction.
we go. Do we have a second for adjournment?
Oh.
5 minutes, or that's a record, fam.
It is.
It's a record.
Good. Is that just an all in favor?
Comments from the crowd?
You need a second. Deb is seconds. Yes.
That's the only reason she came back.
All in favor?
To hear.
Aye.
Out this morning.